Hi, today I want to talk to you about employment, about taking on staff. Now, I'm hopeful that you've already watched my video about how to be a super boss, and if you've not, look out for it because I've already published that. And it's a great video about the 11 things that you need to have in place in order to be considered not just a great boss, but a super boss. How to be nominated for Boss of the Year, year after year after year. However, today I want to talk about the other side of it and taking on employees, about understanding the importance of not always working in the business, but working on the business by having other people that you can allocate works to. So first of all, we need to overcome this thought process that to take somebody on is a significant cost. Quickly share with you the common traditional faults and failures that we all fall into from time to time, believing that taking somebody on is an expense. I wonder how much this statement resonates with you. That we start up in business and the first thing we do is we work really, really hard to try and survive. We try and earn enough money to be able to cover our outgoings. And hopefully there's enough money left at the end of the month as opposed to month left at the end of the money. And we go through this really, really lean phase of survival, and then we realise that perhaps in order to be able to earn a living as opposed to simply surviving, we've got to work longer or harder or more diligently than we do already. And we've now moved from 35, 40 hours a week to 15 to 60 hours a week just simply to try and generate some more cash, because we're still operating on a money per hour, time for money basis. And then eventually you realise that you just can't simply do this anymore. You're now working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It's killing you. You're absolutely exhausted. And you've come to this conclusion that the only way to be able to survive is to take somebody else on. And it's a big decision, that first employee. Certainly is for many business owners. So you scurry around and you wonder as to who's available and how cheap you can get them. And eventually you take the plunge and you offer somebody a job. Now, as soon as you do that, you become an employer and not an employee. Trust me, there's nothing positive or friendly about this next statement. It's just simply true. Until you have an employee, you are one. You've simply created yourself a job. And unfortunately, while ever you remain in a job, it tends to keep you just over broke. And that's not what we set out in business to achieve. So we've taken the bold step and taken somebody else on. And yet automatically that fear factor in the back of our head says, how am I going to pay the salary? How am I possibly going to be able to afford to pay them and me? And they do their 30, 35, 40 hours a week. And legally we're obliged as an employee to be able to make sure that they're salaried first. As an employer, we take what's left. And we subsequently found that by the time we've paid them, at best we're back to survival mode. And we end up having to work harder and harder ourselves to try and earn another living. And we start to do 60 and 70 and 80 hours a week again. And then you say, do you know what, I can't do this, I'll have to take on a second employee, and we do exactly the same thing again and again and again. It's ridiculous. Why on earth would any of us be in business to simply take all of that risk, where every time we take somebody else on, we go back to start point, we go back to day one of survival, sometimes at the expense of other people that we're employing earning more than we do. It just doesn't make sense. Surely there's got to be a different method and way forward. So what is it? How do we achieve it? Well, first of all, I want you to give considerations to taking somebody on is not an expensive decision. Let's assume, just for round numbers' sake, let's assume that we're going to offer them an £18,000 salary, 1,500 quid a month. It's not an £18,000 decision to take somebody on. You've not got to have 18 grand in savings before you put the advert out. I would suggest to you at an £18,000 salary, and do the sums and work this out for yourself, but I think that an £18,000 salary, it's at best a £3,000 decision. It's probably a £2,500 decision. You see, I'm a firm believer in hire slowly and fire fast. As a small business, we simply have not got the means to be able to carry people for a day in business. It's just not possible. Trust me, even in bigger business, in the times that we're in right now, there isn't the funds to be able to carry people in business. When you get caught out, you are out. We've got to have people that contribute towards the business. So first of all, we've got to change our attitudes to thinking that taking a member of staff on is a cost. There's a lovely quote from a gentleman called Bill Gates. You might have heard of him. He's rather successful. And he said, a number of years ago now, the greatest investment any business owner can ever make is in the recruitment, retention, and reward of its people. Let me quickly say that again for you, just so you can take that in. The greatest investment a business can ever make is in the recruitment, retention, and reward of its people. Bearing in mind, this isn't from somebody who said it down the pub. This is from Bill Gates, one of the most successful men financially on the planet. Taking somebody on is an investment, but it's down to you to ensure that it's an investment. And first of all, we need to understand as to what does that look like. So before we write the job advert, I've got a task for you, and I trust you. You're not going to like me for asking you to do it. This is not one of those things that you can do in the next 5 or 10 minutes. This is the type of thing that if you do it and do it properly, you're probably going to hate me for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And do you know what? I'm comfortable with that if you do it properly. It's called A Day in the Life. And I want you to accurately and honestly record one full day of your time. Accurately, in as much as you record everything that you do. And honestly, if you get disrupted while doing it, you write down that you were disrupted and what you were disrupted by. Trust me, this is going to be, when done correctly, the most inefficient day you've ever had in business. Purely on the basis that, regardless of what you're doing, you're constantly interrupted by it to record what you're doing. But it's also the greatest saviour for you in your business by what we're going to do with that information. First of all, I suggest you take some time out and give yourself a reward for having done it properly. Because trust me, if you do it properly, this is a pain in the bum. This is not an easy quick fix. This is not a few scribbles on a piece of paper. The last time I did it, I used an Excel spreadsheet. There were 1,019 entries in one day of the things that I'd either done or thought or considered or been interrupted by. This is a mammoth exercise when done properly. However, it will help you to recruit your first member of staff and every other member of staff that you ever take on in business, and free you up to be able to take some more time out of the business in doing so. So it is worthwhile doing. Once you've done it, I want you to print out the list. And the first thing I want you to do is to take a red pen, and I want you to highlight every single one of those things that you still want to be doing in 24 months' time. That's right. I want you to take a red pen, and I want you to highlight every single one of those things that you did yesterday, or when you did your day in the life, that you still want to be doing in 2 years' time. Now listen to those words carefully. That you want to still be doing, not have to do. I want you to write a line and highlight all of those things that you currently do that you still want to be doing in 2 years' time once you've got a super successful business and a great team around you. Now, interesting enough, I've done this over 500 times with them, with clients that I've worked with, And as of yet, I've never met somebody that's highlighted more than 20% of that list. There are 80% of things that you're currently doing, which if you had the choice, and once you've got a teams to be able to do, you do not want to be doing. You really didn't ought to be doing as the business owner. But at the moment, you're having to do because you haven't got the staff in place. Does that make sense? So take a red pen and honestly record all of the things that you want to still be doing in 2 years' time once you've got a super successful business and a fabulous team around you. And like I say, if you've recorded more than 20%, you're either already living the dream or you're lying to yourself. It's as simple as that. Once you've done the red pen, I want you to swap to either a green or a blue pen. Let's go for blue pen. And I want you to now record all of those tasks and actions that you don't want to be doing that you could give to somebody else. Either already in your team, if you've already got a small team with you and simply haven't allocated the work to them as of yet, or that you could take on to do within the business. Because ironically, this is going to start telling you the skills and attributes and capabilities of the person that you're looking for in that first recruitment. There's no point taking somebody else on to do books when in actual fact the books are on your list. We're trying to free you up to be able to have more times to work on the business rather than in the business. And as a result of that, we need to find some people with skills and attributes and competencies of the things that you're currently having to do that they could do for you. So, blue pen starts to identify people, not person, people, that you might be able to allocate some of these things to if you asked them, if you told them, if you trained them, if you paid them, if you gave them the experience, the availability, the opportunity. If. And when I said people, not person, it's very, very unlikely that all of those things that you don't want to be doing in 2 years' 2 years' time, that somebody else has got the competency and capabilities to be able to do it, as well as you, all of it. Because ironically, otherwise you're looking for a mini-me and they might as well go off and be a business owner themselves. It's most likely that you're going to have to find at least 2, possibly 3 or even 4 different people that you think those skills, those attributes, those competencies are best suited to. Oh, Danny could do that, but Danny's not very good at that, so I'll get Sam to do that. And Sam's great at that, but I don't think she'd be able to do that very well, so I'll get Tracy to do that. And I'll ask Steve if he could do that bit. Look through the list and it starts to give considerations to who might be best to do that line of text, that little competency, that skill or attribute. If they were asked or told or taught, or shown or paid or if. And then the green pen, the final colour, is what are the things on your list that aren't fully essentials to your business, aren't critical, that are done within the business. There are some things that you currently do in the business which, if you needed to, could be outsourced to people that simply do that. Again, the books is a great example. There is no purpose at all in you doing your own books unless your job is to do books, the accounts of the business. Why on earth would you ever do accounts for your own business if you're not an accountant or bookkeeper at the expense of not doing them that well because you're self-taught and you perhaps don't know everything that you need to know about doing accounts and tax and efficiencies, where you could outsource it to someone whose job it is to do tax and efficiencies bookkeeping? Surely the best thing for you in the business to do is to be able to get the right person to do their skill at work at their optimum to be able to ensure that you're getting and the business is getting the right guidance and advice. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that there is a cost to some of these things, and I'm going to come to that in a second. But for now, I want you to red pen all of the things that you want to still be doing. I want you to start taking a blue pen and identifying some of the people that you might be able to ask, tell, train, qualify, teach, pay, to do some of the other stuff in the business that's critical to be done in the business. And I want you to identify a set of skills and attributes of things that you might want to outsource or choose to outsource that aren't critical and essential to the business in green. Once you've done that, you probably need another weekend off and to go and have a game of golf or play tennis or swim or whatever it is that you want to do to relax. Because again, that's another piece of work there that really needs to be done well and efficiently if you're going to be able to get the real most out of this. And then we have to come back to this and understand that there might well be some cost involved here. This isn't an overnight exercise that's suddenly going to give you all of your time and money back. So we've now got to be able to go through and establish as to, well, if I've identified that Sam's going to do this, well, I could ask Sam to do that for me, but Sam might need some training and some support and help in being able to do so. Now, I might be able to provide that to him, and whenever I do that task, I ask Sam to come forward so I can show them how to do it, or I might have to be able to pay for Sam to go and do some training in order to become more competent at it, and then to be able to simply do some mentorship to be able to ensure that they've understood the training and are able to take it on. There might be a cost of either time or money, or both, in order for Sam's to subsequently take that task off me. So I've got to give that due consideration as to how long am I going to continue to do that, which is why I've said 2 years and not 2 minutes. What considerations have I got to give in order that eventually I don't have to do that task over the next 2 years' time? Hopefully it's going to be 2 or 3 months' time as opposed to 18, 20 months before Sam's qualified and ready. But there's a cost of either time or money or both. And I need to go through each one of those exercises for the blue stuff and the green stuff and establish as to how quickly can I get that in place and how much is it going to cost me to be able to put it in place, in either additional time to help and support people to be able to do so, or in cash to be able to get them to be able to do it, or qualify or pay somebody to do the work. But there's a time cost and there's a financial cost. And I need you to be able to scribble all of those down at the bottom of the paper and work out what that is. Now we can go back and do the exciting bits, and we can look at how much time have I freed you up from your daily working life by not doing all of the things that you really shouldn't be doing in the first place, by allocating them to the right person, either in or out of the business, for them to be doing on your behalf. How much time have I saved you out of that list of things that you did on a day in the life? And like I say, the majority of people I've done this with, and I've done this well over 500 times now with business owners across the UK and across the world, to be honest with you. I've done it 3 times in Dubai, for clients in Dubai. I've just saved you 80% of your working day. Okay, in 2 years' time, once we've got all of these things implemented and in place. But I've just saved you 80% of your working day. I've probably saved you 6 or 7 hours, maybe even 8 hours of your day, not doing the things that you really shouldn't have been doing in the first place. So the next question is, so of those 6 or 7 or 8 hours I've just saved you every single day, how much of it have you now got to work doing the things that you really should be doing, those few things that are left in red pen, and how much more of that have you got to do to generate a significant enough income to cover the cost of all of the things that we've identified in blue and green? Because ironically, I've done this well over 500 times in business. The statistics are overwhelming in favour of what I'm about to tell you. On average, the person who fills this in and does it honestly and properly only has to do, or only wants to do, only highlights of those first red pen about 17% on average over the last 500 or plus business owners I've done this with, only highlights about 17% of the things on the list. And yet, we've also identified that they only have to do that for 23% of their time, as opposed to 17% of the time, an additional 6% to be able to cover the costs of all the stuff in blue, and a further 13% to cover all of the costs in green. So I could give up all of the things that I don't really want to be doing. I could either get people within my teams to do them or outsource them to somebody else and still save more than 50% of my working day. Now tell me, is taking on a member of staff a cost or an investment? Are you actually holding yourself back and the business back by not being willing to be able to take somebody on, as opposed to understanding how to be able to find that additional £2,500, £3,000 perhaps, to be able to make a decision to take somebody on the understanding that these are the tasks I need you to be able to do, these are the time frame I need you to be able to do them within, in order that I can go out and win some more business, because that's, as a business owner, what I ought to be doing, is to be able to bringing in new business and then allocating it to the right people within the business in order for the business to continue to grow. And yes, it might sound like a bit of a ball ache, but ironically, it's one that you only have to do once a year in order to be able to continue to take on a new member of staff and a new member of staff and a new member of staff. Remember, my first business I bought an existing business with 3 members of staff and applied exactly this principle in order to be able to grow it by 1 new employee on average every 14 weeks for 4.5 years. Give that some consideration. We started with a small business of 3 plus me, and I sold it just shy of 5 years later with 22 members of staff. And that is the process I used in order to be able to apply and understand as to when to take on a new member of staff, the roles in which I needed them to be able to do, and how quickly I needed them to be up to speed and covering their own income in order that anything beyond that became an investment. Hope that helps. Jaylan from My True North. I look forward to being able to share some more again with you in another video real soon. Take care. See you soon.